In the small Igbo village of Amaizu, life was a tapestry woven with the threads of tradition, community, and folklore. The people here lived harmoniously, their days filled with the songs of birds, the laughter of children, and the wisdom of elders. Among the villagers, there was a man named Oketsu, a respected trader known for his integrity and generosity. Oketsu was married to Ifukene, a woman of unmatched beauty and grace. Together, they were the epitome of a perfect couple, envied and admired by many. One day, a young woman named Ifukene arrived in Amaizu. She was an orphan from a distant village, seeking work and a place to call home. Her arrival coincided with the planting season, a time when extra hands were needed, and Oketsu, moved by her plight, offered her a position as a housemaid. Grateful for the opportunity, Ifukene quickly settled into her new role, her presence bringing a fresh energy to Oketsu's household. Ifukene was a diligent worker, her beauty and charm soon catching the attention of the villagers. However, it was Oketsu who found himself increasingly captivated by her. Despite his deep love for Ifukene, he couldn't ignore the growing attraction he felt towards Ifukene. This unspoken tension simmered beneath the surface, unnoticed by Ifukene, who continued to treat Ifukene with kindness and trust. Ifukene, though grateful for her new life, harbored a secret ambition. She had long dreamed of escaping her humble origins and living a life of luxury and influence. When she noticed Oketsu's lingering glances and sensed his growing affection, she saw an opportunity to realize her dreams. However, standing in her way was Ifukene, whose grace and poise only heightened Ifukene's envy. The villagers often spoke of Ifukene's beauty and her unwavering dedication to Oketsu. She was not just a wife but a partner in every sense, sharing in his joys and burdens, and nurturing their home with love and care. To Ifukene, Ifukene's virtues were a constant reminder of the obstacles she faced in winning Oketsu's heart. As days turned into weeks, Ifukene's envy grew, her thoughts increasingly consumed by the desire to replace Ifukene. She began to plot, her mind weaving dark schemes to achieve her goal. She was careful, though, to hide her true feelings, continuing to play the role of the loyal housemaid while secretly yearning for a life that was not hers to claim. One evening, as the sun dipped below the horizon and the village was bathed in the golden light of dusk, Ifukene sought out an elder known for his wisdom and knowledge of the ancient ways. Elder Ejiku was a reclusive figure, living on the outskirts of Amaizu, surrounded by an aura of mystery and power. Many believed he possessed the ability to commune with the spirits and wield the forces of nature. Ifukene approached Elder Ejiku with caution, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and anticipation. She knew the path she was about to embark on was fraught with danger and moral peril, but her desire for Oketsu and the life she craved was too strong to resist. Elder Ejiku, she began, her voice trembling, I seek your guidance and your wisdom. The old man looked at her with eyes that seemed to pierce through her soul. What is it that you seek, child? He asked, his voice a low rumble like distant thunder. I desire the heart of a man who belongs to another, Ifukene confessed, her eyes downcast. Elder Ejiku studied her for a moment, then nodded slowly. Such desires are not without consequence. The spirits do not grant favors lightly, and the price is often steep. I am willing to pay any price, Ifukene said, desperation creeping into her voice. The elder sighed and motioned for her to follow him into his hut. Inside, the air was thick with the scent of herbs and the flickering light of oil lamps. Elder Ejiku began to chant in a low, rhythmic tone, invoking the spirits of the ancestors and calling upon the forces of the unseen world. After what seemed like an eternity, he turned to Ifukene. There is a way, he said, his voice heavy with foreboding. But it requires a sacrifice, the blood of an innocent. Ifukene's heart skipped a beat. She knew what he was asking, but the thought of taking an innocent life filled her with dread. Yet, the image of Oketsu and the life she craved pushed her forward. "I understand," she whispered, her resolve hardening. Elder Ejiku handed her a small, intricately carved wooden box. "Inside this box is a potion. When the time is right, you must use it to poison Ifukene. Her death will pave the way for your desires, but remember, the spirits will demand their due. Are you prepared for this?" Ifukene nodded, clutching the box tightly. She left Elder Ejiku's hut, the weight of her decision pressing down on her, but her determination unshaken. Ifukene returned to Oketsu's household, her mind racing with the enormity of what she was about to do. She knew she had to act swiftly and decisively, for any hesitation could spell disaster. She bided her time, waiting for the perfect moment to strike. One evening, as the family gathered for dinner, Ifukene saw her chance. She had prepared a special dish for Ifukene, a fragrant soup infused with herbs and spices. As she served the meal, her hands trembled slightly, but she maintained her composure, ensuring that no one suspected a thing. Ifukene smiled warmly at Ifukene, thanking her for the delicious food. The kindness in her eyes was almost too much for Ifukene to bear, but she forced herself to remain focused. As Ifukene lifted the spoon to her lips, Ifukene held her breath, waiting for the potion to take effect. Moments later, Ifukene gasped, clutching her chest. Her face contorted in pain as she collapsed to the floor. Oketsu rushed to her side, his eyes wide with horror and disbelief. Ifukene. Ifukene, what's happening?" Ifukene feigned shock and concern, but inside, she felt a cold satisfaction. The poison had worked, and Ifukene was no more. Oketsu cradled his wife's lifeless body, his grief palpable and raw. The household was thrown into chaos, the once harmonious atmosphere now shattered by tragedy. The village of Amaizo was plunged into mourning. Ifukene's death was a devastating blow to the community, and her funeral was a somber affair, attended by everyone who had known and loved her. Oketsu was inconsolable, his heart broken by the loss of his beloved wife. Ifukene, meanwhile, played the part of the grieving housemaid, her true feelings hidden beneath a mask of sorrow. In the weeks that followed, Ifukene slowly began to weave herself into Oketsu's life. She offered him comfort and support, her presence a balm for his wounded soul. Gradually, Oketsu found himself relying more and more on Ifukene, her beauty and charm filling the void left by Ifukene's death. The villagers noticed the growing closeness between Oketsu and Ifukene, and whispers began to circulate. Some viewed it as a natural progression, a man seeking solace in the arms of another after such a tragic loss. Others, however, felt a sense of unease, sensing that something was amiss. Despite the rumors, Oketsu and Ifukene's relationship deepened. They spent more time together, sharing intimate moments and building a bond that seemed unbreakable. Ifukene's dreams were finally coming true, and she reveled in her newfound status. However, as time went on, Ifukene began to experience strange occurrences. At night, she would hear whispers in the wind, voices that seemed to call her name. Shadows flickered at the edge of her vision, and she felt a constant sense of being watched. The spirits were making their presence known, reminding her of the price she had yet to pay. One night, as she lay in bed, a chilling voice echoed in her mind. "You have taken an innocent life. The spirits demand their due." Ifukene bolted upright, her heart pounding in her chest. She looked around the room, but there was no one there. The voice was inside her head, a haunting reminder of her dark deed. She tried to dismiss it as a figment of her imagination, but the fear gnawed at her, growing stronger with each passing day. The villagers, too, began to notice a change in Ifukene. She became withdrawn and irritable, her once radiant beauty dimmed by the weight of her guilt. Oketsu, though concerned, was too preoccupied with his own grief to fully understand what was happening. As the months passed, Ifukene's mental state deteriorated. She was plagued by nightmares, visions of Ifyomene's lifeless body haunting her every moment. The spirits were relentless, their demands growing louder and more insistent. Ifukene knew she had to find a way to appease them, but she was at a loss for what to do. Desperate, she returned to Elder Ejiku, hoping he could offer a solution. "Elder, the spirits will not leave me in peace. I beg you, tell me how I can make amends." Elder Ejiku looked at her with pity. "The spirits are not easily appeased. You must perform a ritual of atonement, a sacrifice to balance the scales." "What kind of sacrifice?" Ifukene asked, her voice trembling. "The life of another," Elder Ejiku replied, his tone grave. "Only by taking another life can you hope to satisfy the spirits." Ifukene recoiled in horror. She had already committed one murder, the thought of taking another life was too much to bear. But the voices in her head were unrelenting, driving her to the brink of madness. She knew she had no choice but to follow Elder Ejiku's instructions. Ifukene returned to Oketsu's household, her mind a whirlwind of fear and determination. She knew she had to act quickly, before the spirits drove her completely insane. She chose her target carefully, deciding that the only way to end her torment was to eliminate the one person who stood in the way of her complete control over Oketsu, the young daughter, Ndaiko. Ndaiko was a bright and joyful child, her laughter a source of light in the dark days following Ifyomene's death. Ifukene's heart ached at the thought of harming her, but she knew it was the only way to save herself. She waited for the perfect moment, when Oketsu was away on a trading trip and the household was quiet. One evening, as Ndaiko played outside, Ifukene approached her with a forced smile. "Ndaiko, come with me. I have a surprise for you." Ndaiko's eyes lit up with excitement as she followed Ifukene into the forest. They walked in silence, the only sound the crunch of leaves underfoot and the distant calls of nocturnal animals. Ifukene led Ndaiko to a secluded clearing, her heart pounding with dread. "Close your eyes, Ndaiko," Ifukene whispered, her voice shaking. "I have something special for you." Ndaiko obeyed, her trust in Ifukene absolute. As the child closed her eyes, Ifukene took a deep breath, her hands trembling. She reached into her pocket and pulled out a small dagger, its blade glinting in the moonlight. Tears streamed down her face as she raised the dagger, her resolve faltering. But before she could strike, a powerful gust of wind blew through the clearing, knocking the dagger from her hand. Ifukene stumbled back, her heart racing. The wind carried with it a chorus of whispers, the voices of the spirits rising in a cacophony of anger and disapproval. "Enough," the voice boomed, echoing through the forest. Ifukene fell to her knees, her body trembling with fear. In that moment, she knew she could not go through with it. She could not take another innocent life, no matter the cost. She turned to Ndaiko, who stood frozen in fear, and pulled her into a tight embrace. "I'm so sorry," Ifukene sobbed, her heart breaking. The spirits, sensing her genuine remorse, relented. The voices faded, leaving Ifukene with a profound sense of guilt and sorrow. She knew she could never undo the harm she had caused, but she vowed to make amends in any way she could. When Oketsu returned from his trip, Ifukene confessed everything. She told him about the poison, her envy, and her pact with Elder Ejiku. Oketsu was devastated, his trust shattered and his heart filled with anger and betrayal. He could not bring himself to forgive Ifukene, but he also could not bear the thought of exacting revenge. Instead, Oketsu banished Ifukene from the village, condemning her to a life of exile. She left Amazu with nothing but the clothes on her back and the weight of her guilt. The villagers watched her departure in silence, their feelings a mixture of pity and relief. Ifukene wandered the land, seeking redemption for her sins. She dedicated her life to helping others, hoping to atone for the life she had taken and the pain she had caused. Though she could never fully escape her past, she found solace in her efforts to do good, her heart slowly healing with each act of kindness. Oketsu, meanwhile, struggled to rebuild his life. He found strength in his daughter, Ndaiko, and the support of the village. Though the scars of betrayal remained, he eventually found peace, honoring Ifukene's memory by living a life of integrity and love. Years passed, and the story of Ifukene became a cautionary tale in Amaizu. The villagers spoke of her with a mix of sorrow and reverence, her journey a reminder of the consequences of envy and the power of redemption. Ndaiko grew into a wise and compassionate woman, her mother's legacy living on through her actions. She often visited Elder Ejiku, seeking his guidance and learning from his wisdom. She carried with her the lessons of the past, using them to build a future filled with hope and understanding. In the end, Ifukene's tale became a part of Amaizu's rich tapestry of folklore, a story that resonated with the people and reminded them of the delicate balance between desire and consequence, love and loss, and the enduring power of forgiveness.